The explosion lit up the asteroid belt like a dying star. Captain Marcus Reed's ship spiraled through space, alarms screaming as enemy fire tore through his hull. Then, he saw it. A massive alien wreck embedded in an asteroid, still smoldering from recent battle. Inside, something moved. Something small. Something that would change the course of human spaceflight forever. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Marcus Reed gripped his control stick as another volley of plasma fire streaked past his cockpit. The Terran Defense Force fighter shuddered under the impact of debris from the destroyed enemy cruiser. 3 hostile interceptors remained, weaving through the tumbling rocks of the asteroid belt with predatory grace. His shields were down to 20%. His port engine was venting coolant into the void, and his ammunition was running dangerously low. Phoenix 7, this is command. Break off engagement and return to base immediately. The voice crackled through his helmet speakers. Negative, command. I've got 3 bogies on my tail and nowhere to run, Marcus replied, executing a tight barrel roll to avoid another plasma burst. The maneuver sent him careening toward a massive asteroid, its surface pockmarked with craters and strange metallic protrusions. That's when he saw it. Embedded in the asteroid's surface was the twisted remains of an alien vessel, unlike anything in the Terran military database. The ship's organic-looking hull still glowed with residual heat from what must have been a catastrophic crash landing. Steam vented from ruptures in its biometallic skin, and electrical discharges danced across exposed conduits. The vessel was massive, easily 3 times the size of a Terran destroyer, its architecture defying conventional design principles. Marcus had no time to investigate. The lead enemy fighter had locked onto him, its weapons charging for a killing blow. With his options dwindling, Marcus made a desperate decision. He dove straight toward the wrecked alien ship, using its bulk as cover. The pursuing fighters hesitated, perhaps recognizing something about the crashed vessel that Marcus didn't. Their hesitation cost them. Marcus whipped his fighter around the wrecked superstructure and caught the first pursuer in his crosshairs. His remaining missiles found their mark, and the enemy ship exploded in a brilliant fireball. The other 2 fighters, suddenly cautious, began to pull back. As Marcus circled the alien wreck, waiting to see if his enemies would press their attack, his sensors picked up something unexpected. A life sign, faint but unmistakable, coming from inside the crashed ship. It wasn't human, but it was alive. The biosignature was unlike anything in his database, showing metabolic patterns that seemed impossible. Command. I'm detecting a survivor in the alien wreck at coordinate 779. Requesting permission to investigate. There was a long pause before the response came. Negative. Phoenix 7. Your orders are to return to base immediately. We'll send a salvage team. Marcus watched the 2 remaining enemy fighters disappear into the asteroid field. His own ship was barely holding together, and command was right. He should return to base. But that life sign nagged at him. Whatever was in that ship was dying. He thought of all the times he'd been shot down, floating in the void waiting for rescue. Against his better judgment, Marcus maneuvered his damaged fighter to the alien vessel's hull. Up close, the ship was even more mysterious. Its surface seemed to breathe, pulsing with a faint bioluminescent glow. He found what looked like an airlock, though it resembled more of a sphincter than any door he'd seen. Donning his EVA suit, Marcus exited his fighter and approached the alien ship. The moment his gloved hand touched the hull, the airlock dilated open, as if recognizing his intent. Inside, the corridor was a fusion of organic tissue and advanced technology, walls that seemed grown rather than built. Following his suit's life sign detector, Marcus navigated through the ship's bizarre interior. The atmosphere was toxic to humans, filled with methane and exotic gases, his suit's filters strained to process. He found bodies, alien crew members with elongated skulls and 4 arms, their features obscured by environmental suits that had merged with their skin. The life sign led him to what might have been a medical bay or nursery. The room's walls were lined with pod-like structures, most shattered and dark. But one still glowed with soft blue light. Inside, Marcus found it. The creature was small, no bigger than a human child of 5 or 6 years. Its body was covered in what looked like fur, but closer inspection revealed it to be incredibly fine filaments that seemed part biological, part synthetic. The cub's face was vaguely feline, with large eyes that remained closed. Its body was terribly burned, the fur filaments blackened and melted in places. It breathed in labored gasps, each exhale producing a whimper that transcended species barriers. Marcus knew he shouldn't touch it. First contact protocols were clear, and this was a species humanity had never encountered. The regulations flashed through his mind, every rule he was about to break. But looking at the suffering creature, protocols seemed meaningless. He gently lifted the cub from its pod, surprised by how light it felt. The moment he made contact, the cub's eyes fluttered open, revealing irises that swirled with colors Marcus had no names for. Command. I've found the survivor. It's a juvenile, severely injured. I'm bringing it back. The radio exploded with protests, warnings, and direct orders to leave the alien where it was. Marcus turned off his comm. He'd face the consequences later. Getting back to his fighter while carrying the injured cub proved challenging. The alien ship's interior began to shift and contract, as if rejecting his presence now that he'd taken one of its own. Marcus ran through corridors that narrowed behind him, barely making it to the airlock before the passage sealed completely. His fighter's cockpit was designed for one, but Marcus managed to secure the cub in the small space behind his seat, wrapping it in emergency thermal blankets. The creature had fallen unconscious again, its breathing shallow but steady. As Marcus powered up his damaged fighter, he noticed something strange. The cub's fur filaments were moving, reaching out to touch the ship's instruments. Wherever they made contact, his damaged systems began to stabilize. The flight back to Terran Defense Station Gamma took 3 hours. 3 hours of Marcus wondering if he'd just ended his career, or possibly started an interstellar incident. The cub remained unconscious, but its presence seemed to have a calming effect on his fighter's systems. Warning lights that had been flashing red turned amber, then green. Station Gamma's landing bay was crowded with security personnel and medical teams when Marcus touched down. He expected to be arrested immediately, but the arrival of Admiral Sarah Chen suggested his situation was more complicated than simple insubordination. Captain Reed. The Admiral's voice was stern as Marcus climbed from his cockpit, the unconscious cub in his arms. Do you have any idea what you've done? I saved a life, Admiral. You've made first contact with an unknown species without authorization. You've brought an alien life form onto a military installation. You've violated at least 17 protocols. With respect, Admiral, it's a child. A burned, dying child. The protocols can go to hell. The medical team approached cautiously, scanners extended. The cub stirred in Marcus's arms, its strange eyes opening to survey the crowd of humans. There was intelligence there, Marcus realized, far more than any Terran child of equivalent size would possess. Fascinating, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the station's chief xenobiologist, breathed as she studied her scanner readings. Its cellular structure is like nothing we've seen. Organic and synthetic components integrated at the molecular level. And look at these neural patterns, the conjugative activity is off the charts. The cub made a soft trilling sound and pressed closer to Marcus. Its fur filaments extended again, wrapping gently around his arm. Where they touched his suit, Marcus felt a strange tingling sensation, as if his very atoms were being analyzed and catalogued. It's bonded with him, Dr. Tanaka observed. Look at the biochemical readings. The creature is already adapting to human pheromones and electromagnetic signatures. This species must have some kind of rapid biological adaptation mechanism. Admiral Chen studied the readings, her expression thoughtful. Take them both to medical isolation. Full quarantine protocols. And, Captain Reed, you're confined to quarters when not undergoing medical examination. We'll discuss your future in Terran defense after we figure out what to do with your new friend. The next weeks passed in a blur of medical tests, debriefings, and long hours spent with the recovering cub. Marcus had expected to be court-martialed, but it seemed the unique nature of his find had earned him a temporary reprieve. The cub, which the science team had designated Subject Alpha, refused to let anyone else near it. It would only accept treatment when Marcus was present. and showed signs of distress whenever he left the isolation chamber. "It's remarkable," Dr. Tanaka told Marcus during one of their sessions. "The creature's healing ability isn't just personal. Watch this." She held up a broken scanner, its screen cracked and circuits exposed. The cub reached out with its fur filaments, and within minutes, the device hummed back to life. How is that possible? Near as we can tell, the species has some kind of genetic memory related to technology. It can understand and repair complex systems through touch. But there's more. Each time it repairs something, it improves it. That scanner now has twice the range and resolution it had before. The applications are staggering. We've never seen anything like it. As the cub recovered, its appearance changed. The burned fur filaments regrew, revealing a coat that shifted colors like oil on water. Its body, once frail and small, began to fill out with surprising speed. Within a month, it had grown to the size of a large dog. Its intelligence became more apparent too. It learned to understand human speech with frightening speed, though it couldn't reproduce the sounds. Marcus spent his days in the furred and isolation chamber, talking to the cub, reading to it, sharing his meals. The creature seemed particularly interested in his stories about flying, its eyes lighting up whenever he described piloting his fighter through the stars. He would project holographic displays of his past missions, and the cub would study them intently, its filaments occasionally reaching out to touch the projections, as if trying to understand them at a molecular level. "I'm calling you Phoenix," Marcus told it one day, after watching it solve a complex three-dimensional puzzle that would have challenged most human adults. "You rose from the ashes of that wreck, just like the mythical bird," Phoenix trilled approvingly, its fur filaments rippling with what Marcus had learned was pleasure. The cub had developed a way of communicating through color casts, changes and harmonics that the translation team was still trying to decode. Each day brought new breakthroughs in understanding, new ways to bridge the gap between their species. 3 months after the rescue, Admiral Chen summoned Marcus to her office. Phoenix, now too large to carry, but still juvenile, walked beside him through the station corridors. Personnel they passed stared in wonder and fear at the alien creature that moved with fluid grace on 4 multi-jointed legs. Some pressed against the walls to give them more room. Others reached out tentatively, drawn by curiosity. "The xenobiology team has made a breakthrough," Admiral Chen began without preamble. "They've identified Phoenix's species from fragments of the crashed ship's database. They're called the synthesis." She activated a holographic display showing images recovered from the alien vessel. Adult synthesis were magnificent creatures, standing 3 meters tall on their hind legs, their bodies a perfect fusion of biological evolution and technological augmentation. Their fur filaments weren't just sensory organs, they were living tools, capable of interfacing with any technology, understanding it, improving it. "They're builders," the Admiral continued. "Their entire civilization is based on biomechanical integration. They don't just use technology, they become it. And here's the interesting part. They're pacifists. That ship you found wasn't a warship. It was a research vessel that got caught in our battle with the Proxima Confederation." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "We killed peaceful explorers? We didn't know. They use a form of stealth technology our sensors couldn't penetrate. The Proxima forces must have thought they were one of ours." The Admiral's expression softened slightly. "Your rescue of Phoenix may have prevented a diplomatic disaster. The synthesis have reached out through quantum channels. They want their child back." Marcus looked down at Phoenix, who had curled up at his feet. The thought of losing the creature he'd come to think of as family was painful, but Phoenix wasn't his to keep. When? That's where things get complicated. The synthesis say Phoenix has undergone something they call primary bonding with you. In their culture, that's sacred. They're willing to wait until Phoenix reaches maturity to decide its own fate. That could be years. "So, what happens to me?" "You've been assigned as Phoenix's guardian and liaison. Congratulations, Captain. You're now Earth's first interspecies foster parent. You'll continue your duties as a pilot, but Phoenix stays with you." The next 2 years brought dramatic changes to both Marcus and Phoenix. The young synthesis grew rapidly, reaching the size of a small horse by its first anniversary on the station. Its intelligence expanded exponentially, and it began communicating through a combination of color shifts, harmonics, and a sign language developed by the linguistics team. Phoenix showed an insatiable curiosity about human technology, especially Marcus's fighter. During maintenance sessions, the creature would extend its fur filaments into the ship's systems, learning its every circuit and component. The engineering team was fascinated and disturbed in equal measure as Phoenix began suggesting improvements to human designs. Simple modifications at first, a recalibrated power coupling here, an optimized circuit pathway there. But soon, Phoenix was proposing fundamental changes to human technology. It doesn't just understand our technology, Chief Engineer Rodriguez explained to Marcus during one particularly intense upgrade session. It remembers everything it touches at a molecular level. Phoenix has memorized your entire fighter, every bolt, every circuit, every line of code. And it's finding ways to make it better. These suggested modifications would increase your ship's efficiency by 30% minimum. Marcus's relationship with Phoenix deepened beyond Guardian and Ward. They flew together. Phoenix somehow able to withstand the G-forces that would kill most creatures. The synthesis would interface directly with the prey. Fighter systems, becoming a living co-pilot that could react faster than any human. Their mental connection grew stronger with each flight, allowing them to communicate almost telepathically during missions. Their partnership didn't go unnoticed. Admiral Chen authorized a series of experimental flights, testing the limits of human synthesis cooperation. The results were extraordinary. With Phoenix integrated into his fighter's systems, Marcus could perform maneuvers that defied conventional physics. The living ship responded to thought as much as action, anticipating threats before sensors could detect them. But nothing lasts forever. On a routine patrol near the asteroid belt where they'd first met, Marcus and Phoenix encountered something that would change their lives again. A distress signal, weak but unmistakable, coming from deep within the field. I know that signature. Phoenix communicated through the fighter speakers, its synthetic voice a recent development that still sent chills down Marcus's spine. It's the sanctuary ship. My people. They found the massive synthesis vessel hidden within a hollowed-out asteroid, its biomechanical hull pulsing with distress patterns. As they approached, Phoenix's fur stood on end, colors cycling through patterns Marcus had never seen. The emotional resonance through their bond was overwhelming. Joy, fear, longing, and something else, a deep sense of purpose. They're dying, Phoenix explained. The ship's core is failing. Without it, everyone aboard will perish. Marcus didn't hesitate. They docked with the alien vessel, entering through an airlock that recognized Phoenix immediately. Inside, they found dozens of adult synthesis in various states of distress. The ship's mechanical systems were failing, its living components withering as the technological elements shut down. The air was thick with pheromones that made Phoenix whimper with empathetic pain. An adult synthesis approached them, its form magnificent despite its obvious weakness. It communicated with Phoenix in a language of light and sound that Marcus couldn't follow, but Phoenix translated through their neural link. This is Seeker of Horizons, my Jean Donor. What you would call Mother. She says the ship was damaged in an ion storm. They've been drifting for months. Their biocore is dying, and with it, the ship itself. Marcus watched as Phoenix interfaced with the ship's core, fur filaments spreading across damaged conduits like healing veins. The young synthesis's body began to glow with effort as it poured energy into the failing systems. But it wasn't enough. The damage was too extensive, the core too far gone. I can stabilize it, Phoenix said, strain evident in its voice, but I need more power. More than my body can generate. Without thinking, Marcus placed his hand on Phoenix's back. He felt the connection immediately, Phoenix's fur filaments penetrating his suit to interface directly with his nervous system. The sensation was overwhelming, a merger of consciousness that let him feel the ship's pain as if it were his own body. Together, they became a conduit, channeling energy from Marcus's fighter through Phoenix into the dying ship. Marcus felt his own life force being drawn out, his neural pathways burning with the strain of channeling power he was never meant to handle. But he didn't let go. Hours passed in a trance of shared consciousness. When they finally separated, the ship's core pulsed with renewed life. Seeker of Horizons approached them, her massive form radiating gratitude. She communicated something to Phoenix that made the young synthesis's colors shift to patterns of joy and sorrow intermingled. Through their bond, Marcus felt the weight of Phoenix's decision before it was spoken. "She offers me a choice," Phoenix translated. "I can return to my people, take my place among the synthesis, learn our ancient arts, continue our traditions. Or, I can remain with you, as your bonded companion. The choice is mine alone." Marcus's heart clenched. He'd known this day would come, but faced with it, the prospect of losing Phoenix was almost unbearable. "What do you want to do?" Phoenix's response came not through words, but through their lingering connection. Marcus felt the creature's love for its own kind, the pull of its heritage and culture. But stronger still was something else, the bond they'd forged, the partnership that had made them both more than they were alone. "I am Synthesis," Phoenix said finally, "but I am also your partner. My place is between worlds, bridging our species. I choose to stay." The adult Synthesis accepted Phoenix's decision with grave dignity. Before they left, Seeker of Horizons touched Marcus's forehead with a fur filament, and he felt knowledge flow into his mind, technical, specifications, biological processes, the deep science of biomechanical integration. Centuries of synthesis understanding poured into his consciousness, protected from overwhelming him only by Phoenix's gentle filtering. "A gift," Phoenix explained, "so that we might better unite our technologies." The journey back to Station Gamma was subdued. Phoenix had made a monumental choice, effectively exiling itself from its own kind to remain with humanity. With Marcus, the weight of that decision sat heavy on them both, but beneath the solemnity was something else, a sense of purpose, of destiny fulfilled. Life moved forward regardless of their choices. Phoenix continued to grow, reaching its full adult height of 3 meters. Its integration with human technology became more sophisticated, leading to breakthroughs in ship design and systems management. Marcus found himself at the center of a new initiative, developing hybrid fighters that merged human engineering with synthesis biotechnology. Years passed. Marcus aged while Phoenix remained seemingly unchanged. Its species' lifespan measured in centuries rather than decades. They became legends in the Terran Defense Force. The human pilot and his alien partner who could fly impossible missions and survive unsurvivable odds. Their quote, hybrid fighter, constantly evolving as Phoenix integrated new technologies, became the prototype for an entire fleet. Then came the day that would define their legacy. Marcus was testing a new prototype fighter in the outer system when the ambush came. Pirates, using stolen military hardware, caught him in a carefully planned trap. His ship, despite its advanced systems, was overwhelmed by sheer numbers. 12 enemy fighters emerged from the sensor shadow of a dwarf planet, their weapons already locked on. "Phoenix, get to an escape pod," Marcus ordered as his fighter took critical damage. The cockpit filled with smoke, systems failing one by one. "Not without you," Phoenix replied, its fur filaments working frantically to repair systems even as they failed. The creature's body glowed with exertion, pouring its life force into the dying ship. The explosion that followed tore the fighter apart. Marcus managed to eject at the last second, but Phoenix had no escape pod large enough for its form. He watched in horror as the ship detonated, his partner still inside. "Phoenix!" He screamed into the void, but there was no answer. The pirates, perhaps thinking him not worth the effort, jumped away, leaving Marcus floating in space. His suit's beacon brought rescue within hours, but the damage was done. Phoenix was gone, vaporized along with the prototype fighter. Marcus spent weeks in medical, recovering from vacuum exposure and radiation burns. The physical healing was nothing compared to the emotional trauma. He'd lost more than a partner. He'd lost family. The neural pathways Phoenix had created in his mind ached with absence. Phantom pains where their connection had been severed. They held a memorial service. The entire station turned out to honor the alien who'd become one of their own. Marcus stood at the viewing port, staring out at the stars, wondering if he'd ever fly again. How could he, without Phoenix beside him? 3 months later, Marcus was in his quarters, still on medical leave, when the proximity alarm sounded. Something was approaching the station, something big, and it wasn't responding to hails. He rushed to the command center, finding it in chaos. On the main screen, a ship unlike anything they'd seen was approaching. It was massive, easily cruiser-sized, but its design was purely alien. Biomechanical architecture that flowed like liquid metal, surfaces that seemed to breathe and pulse with inner light. It's not responding to any communications, the duty officer reported, but it's not showing hostile intent either. It's just coming. As the ship drew closer, Marcus felt something stir in his chest. A warmth, a recognition that bypassed his conscious mind. The neural pathways Phoenix had created suddenly flared to life, resonating with something in them. Why? Approaching vessel. Open the landing bay, he ordered. Sir, we can't just... That's Phoenix. Open the bay. The alien ship settled into the landing bay with impossible grace, its form shifting to fit the space perfectly. As Marcus approached, a section of the hull dilated open, and Phoenix emerged. But this wasn't the Phoenix he remembered. The creature had transformed, its body now a seamless fusion of its natural form and technological components. It stood taller, moved with even more fluid grace, and its fur filaments glowed with integrated circuitry. Most striking were the wings, vast biomechanical constructs that could function in atmosphere or space. Marcus. Phoenix's voice resonated directly in his mind now, no longer needing speakers. I'm sorry I was gone so long. I had to rebuild. Rebuild? Marcus reached out, his hand meeting Phoenix's fur. The connection was instantaneous, memories flooding through the link. Marcus saw Phoenix's survival, the creature's core consciousness preserved in fragments scattered through space. Using the explosion's energy and its species' regenerative abilities, Phoenix had dispersed itself at the quantum level. He saw it gathering debris from their destroyed fighter, from the pirate ships, from cosmic dust itself. Using its species' gift of biomechanical memory, Phoenix had reconstructed not just a ship, but itself, evolving into something entirely new. This is our ship, Phoenix explained, gesturing to the massive vessel. I built it from memory, from your fighter, from the sanctuary ship, from every design I've ever touched. But I've made it better. Made it ours. Admiral Chen and the senior staff arrived, staring in awe at the transformed Phoenix and its creation. Dr. Tanaka's scanners were going wild, detecting technologies that shouldn't exist, biological processes merged with quantum mechanics in ways that defied understanding. How is this possible? The Admiral asked. Phoenix's colors shifted in what Marcus recognized as amusement. I am synthesis. We don't just adapt technology. We become it. And through my bond with Marcus, I've learned to blend not just systems, but concepts. Human creativity with synthesis integration. The explosion taught me to exist in multiple states simultaneously. I am both creature and ship now. Over the following days, teams of scientists and engineers studied Phoenix's creation. The ship was a marvel, a living vessel that could self-repair, adapt to any environment, and interface directly with its pilot's consciousness. It represented a leap forward in technology that would normally take centuries to achieve. The hull could shift between solid matter and energy shields. The engines operated on principles that bent space-time itself. The weapons systems were defensive rather than offensive, able to disable enemies without destroying them, reflecting Phoenix's pacifist heritage. But Phoenix had built it for one reason, to fly with Marcus again. The ship needs both of us, Phoenix explained as they stood in what would have been the cockpit on a traditional vessel. Instead, it was a biomechanical chamber where pilot and ship became one. Neural interfaces grew from the walls like living vines, ready to merge consciousness between human, synthesis, and vessel. I am its heart, but you are its soul. Together, we are complete. Marcus felt the rightness of it. This wasn't just about flying anymore. It was about evolution, about the future of both their species. The chamber seemed to pulse with anticipation, as if the ship itself were eager to bond with them. The first flight of the hybrid ship was scheduled as a simple test run. Marcus settled into the pilot's interface. Feeling Phoenix's presence merge with his own, the ship responded to their combined will, lifting off with a grace that made his old fighter seem clumsy by comparison. But this was more than just improved performance. Through their merged senses, Marcus experienced space in ways no human ever had. They rose through the atmosphere, past the orbital platforms, into the vast darkness between stars. But this wasn't darkness to them anymore. Through their merged senses, Marcus could perceive cosmic radiation as colors beyond the visible spectrum, gravitational fields as music that resonated in dimensions humans couldn't normally access, the quantum foam of space-time itself as texture against the ship's biomechanical hull. "Do you feel it?" Phoenix asked. "This is how my species experiences the universe. And now, through our bond, you can too." They pushed the ship harder, testing its limits. It responded by having no limits. At least none they could find. Speed became irrelevant when they could fold space. Maneuverability meant nothing when they could exist in multiple positions simultaneously. The ship was alive, thinking, adapting to their needs before they could articulate them. Word of their success spread quickly through human space and beyond. Within months, the partnership between human pilots and synthesis companions became the new model for space exploration. Phoenix's people, inspired by their example, began seeking their own human partners. A new age of cooperation dawned, built on the foundation of trust between a human pilot and a burned alien cub. The first generation of hybrid ships rolled out of the orbital shipyards, each one unique, reflecting the personality of its human synthesis pair. Some were sleek and fast, built for exploration. Others were massive and protective, designed for rescue operations. All shared the same core principle, the fusion of human ingenuity and synthesis biomechanical mastery. Marcus stood on the observation deck of New Horizons Station, watching as the latest class of hybrid ships prepared for launch. Phoenix stood beside him, no longer the small, injured creature he'd rescued years ago, but a magnificent being that bridged two worlds. The station itself had been rebuilt using synthesis technology, its halls now living spaces that could adapt to any species' needs. "Any regrets?" Marcus asked, a question that had become their ritual. Phoenix's fur filaments brushed his shoulder in a gesture of affection. "How can I regret the path that led us here? You saved me, Marcus. But more than that, you gave me purpose. Together, we've shown our species that the future isn't about human or synthesis. It's about us, all of us, together." They watched as the hybrid ships engaged their engines, living vessels with human hearts and alien souls, heading out to explore the universe in ways neither species could have imagined alone. The lead ship was piloted by Sarah Kim and her partner Harmony of Depths, recent graduates of the hybrid pilot program. They executed a perfect departure role, their ship's biometal hull shimmering with excitement. "Remember your first flight?" Phoenix asked, amusement coloring its mental voice. "I nearly threw up when you first merged our consciousness," Marcus laughed. "Took me weeks to get used to seeing in 12 dimensions. And now? Now I can't imagine flying any other way." They walked together toward their ship, the first of its kind but no longer the only one. As they merged with the living vessel, becoming one with its consciousness, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From a desperate rescue in an asteroid belt to pioneers of a new age of exploration, the ship lifted off, its biomechanical systems humming with life. Through their shared consciousness, Marcus and Phoenix felt the universe unfold before them, full of possibilities that neither human nor synthesis could explore alone. But together, anything was possible. As they jumped to hyperspace, heading for unexplored regions of the galaxy, Marcus heard Phoenix's voice in his mind, full of wonder and joy. "Thank you, my friend, for saving me, for believing in us, for showing me that home isn't a place or a species. It's the bond between souls who choose to soar together." The stars welcomed them, these pioneers of a new age, as they flew on into the infinite dark. no longer alone but united in purpose, in friendship, in the unbreakable bond between a human pilot and the alien he'd saved, who had in turn saved him. Their story became legend, told on both Earth and Synthesis worlds. How a moment of compassion in the cold depths of space had changed the course of two civilizations. Children of both species grew up dreaming of finding their own partner, of flying the living ships that represented the best of both worlds. The hybrid pilot program expanded to include other species, each bringing their own unique perspectives to the growing alliance. Marcus and Phoenix continued to explore, to push the boundaries of what was possible when two species joined not just in alliance, but in true understanding. They discovered new worlds, made contact with other species, and always, they flew together. Their ship evolved with them, growing, learning, becoming something greater with each journey. Years turned to decades. Marcus aged, as humans do, while Phoenix remained unchanging, sustained by its alien physiology. But their bond only grew, stronger, deeper, transcending the physical to become something purely spiritual. Phoenix had learned to slow Marcus's aging through their biomechanical connection, giving them more time together than any human pilot had right to expect. On Marcus's 90th birthday, they sat in the observation lounge of their ship, looking out at a binary star system they'd discovered. The two suns danced around each other in an eternal orbital embrace, much like the partnership between human and synthesis. "Will you remember me?" Marcus asked, his voice steady despite the years. Phoenix's consciousness enveloped him like a warm embrace. "I am synthesis. We remember everything we touch. And you," Marcus read, "have touched my very soul. As long as I exist, you exist. In every ship I help create, in every pilot I train, in every star we've seen together. You are immortal in my memory, in the memory of my species." Marcus smiled, feeling Phoenix's love, constant as the stars themselves. "Fly on, old friend. For both of us." When Marcus passed peacefully in his sleep a few months later, Phoenix mourned in the way of its species, through creation. It built a new ship, the most advanced yet, incorporating everything they'd learned together. And in its core, woven into the very fabric of its being, were Marcus's memories, his creativity, his indomitable human spirit. Phoenix took on new partners over the centuries that followed, teaching them the ways of biomechanical flight. But each one knew the story of Marcus Reed, the human who'd started it all with a simple act of compassion. His rescue of a burned alien cub had created a future where the stars belonged to all who had the courage to reach for them. The memorial to Marcus stood in the center of New Horizons Station, but his true monument was written across the stars. Every hybrid ship that soared through space, every life saved by the Human Synthesis Alliance, every new world discovered by their merged consciousness. All of it traced back to that moment in an asteroid belt, when a human pilot chose compassion over protocol. And in the vast expanse of space, where human and synthesis ships danced between the stars, the spirit of that first partnership lived on. In every impossible maneuver, in every barrier broken, in every life saved by the hybrid ships, Marcus and Phoenix flew together still, eternal pioneers of the void. Proof that the greatest adventures begin not with grand gestures, but with the simple choice to help another soul in need. The hybrid ships spread throughout the galaxy, each one carrying a piece of that original bond. They found other species, some in need of rescue like Phoenix had been, others advanced beyond human or synthesis understanding. But always, the crews approached with the same spirit Marcus had shown: compassion first, protocol second. 1,000 years later, when humanity and the synthesis had spread to countless worlds, when their hybrid technology had become the foundation of galactic civilization, children still learned the story. How a burned alien cub in a crashed ship had changed everything. How a human pilot's split-second decision to save a life had forged an alliance that would reshape the cosmos. Phoenix lived on, ancient now even by synthesis standards, teaching new generations and guiding the continued evolution of their shared technology. When asked about the secret to successful human synthesis partnership, Phoenix would shift its colors to patterns of deep affection and say, "Find someone willing to break the rules for compassion. Find someone who sees past differences to the soul beneath. Find someone who understands that the greatest strength comes not from standing alone, but from choosing gray to soar together. And somewhere in the quantum foam of space-time, in the memories of an immortal being, in the heart of every hybrid ship that sailed the cosmic sea, a human pilot and his phoenix soared on, forever united, forever free, forever exploring the infinite wonders of the universe they'd helped to unite. The legacy of Marcus Reed and Phoenix became more than history, it became mythology, the foundation story of a new age, where species boundaries meant nothing compared to the bonds between souls. From the ashes of destruction, they had built something beautiful, something lasting, something that would carry all sentient life forward into a future bright with promise. And in the end, that's what Marcus had saved when he pulled that small, burned creature from a dying ship. Not just one life, but the future itself. A future where the stars belonged to all who dared to reach for them with open hearts and minds. The synthesis archives, maintained by Phoenix and its descendants, contained millions of entries about the partnerships that followed. Each story was unique, yet all echoed the same themes of trust, sacrifice, and evolution. Young human pilots would spend months at the archive before their first bonding, learning not just the technical aspects of biomechanical integration, but the philosophical foundations laid down by Marcus and Phoenix. One such pilot was Elena Vasquez, great-great-granddaughter of Admiral Chen. She arrived at the archive carrying the weight of her family's military tradition, expecting to find rigid protocols and strategic advantages. Instead, Phoenix showed her memories of Marcus's doubt, his fear, his very human struggles with a decision that had no precedent. He was terrified. Phoenix explained, its ancient voice resonating through the crystalline memory chambers. When he picked me up from that pod, his hands shook. Not from fear of me, but fear of what saving me might cost humanity. Yet he chose compassion anyway. That choice, that moment of vulnerability, created via everything you see today. Elena bonded with a young synthesis named Echo of Stars, and together they pushed the boundaries even further. Their ship could phase between dimensional planes, accessing layers of reality that previous generations couldn't even perceive. Yet for all their advanced capabilities, their partnership was built on the same foundation Marcus had established: mutual respect, shared purpose, and the willingness to risk everything for each other. The hybrid ships evolved beyond mere transportation. They became living ecosystems, mobile habitats where multiple species could thrive together. Some grew to the size of small moons, carrying entire civilizations through space. Others remained small and agile, scouts and messengers darting between the stars with news and knowledge. Phoenix watched this evolution with pride tinged by melancholy. Every advancement, every new discovery, reminded it of what Marcus had set in motion. The human's biological form was long gone, but his essence lived on in ways even Phoenix hadn't anticipated. The biomechanical neural pathways they'd developed together had become the template for a new form of consciousness, neither purely organic nor synthetic, but something transcendent. On the 1000th anniversary of Marcus's death, Phoenix stood before the Galactic Council, a body that included representatives from 17 different spacefaring species, all connected through the hybrid B technology network. The chamber itself was a marvel of biomechanical architecture, its walls shifting to accommodate the environmental needs of each delegate. "We gather to remember," Phoenix began. Its words translated instantly into dozens of languages through the neural network. Not just a man, but a moment. The moment when fear gave way to compassion, when protocol yielded to conscience, when two species discovered they were stronger together than apart. The ceremony that followed was broadcast across the known galaxy. Ships of every configuration gathered in the space around that historic asteroid belt, now preserved as a memorial site. They performed the dance of remembrance, a synchronized flight pattern that told the story of that first encounter, the rescue, the bond, and everything that followed. But even as they celebrated the past, the future called. Deep space observatories had detected signals from beyond the galactic edge, patterns that suggested not just intelligence, but a form of consciousness the hybrid minds could barely comprehend. The next great adventure awaited. Phoenix chose its crew carefully for this mission. Not the strongest or the smartest, but those who embodied Marcus's spirit. Captain Jin Watanabe, who had once disobeyed orders to rescue a stranded mining crew. Navigator Thrix, of the Crystalline Hegemony, who had sacrificed its own ship to save a human colony. Engineer Maria Santos, whose innovative hybrid designs had revolutionized medical technology, saving countless lives. Their ship, the Marcus read, was Phoenix's masterpiece. Built using techniques learned over centuries, infused with memories and experiences from thousands of partnerships, it represented the culmination of everything that had begun with a rescued cub. The vessel could exist in multiple states simultaneously, adapt to any environment, and most importantly, it carried within its core the accumulated wisdom of human synthesis cooperation. As they prepared to launch toward the unknown signals, Phoenix shared one final memory with the crew. It was Marcus's last flight, his aged hands steady on the controls, his mind still sharp despite his years. In that memory, Marcus spoke words he'd never said aloud, thoughts Phoenix had sensed through their bond. "I used to think I saved you that day." Marcus's remembered voice echoed through the ship's consciousness. "But now I know better. We saved each other. That's what partnership means. That's what love means, across any boundary, beyond any difference." The Marcus Reed engaged its trans-dimensional drives, sliding sideways through reality toward the mysterious signals. The journey would take them beyond the known galaxy, into regions where the laws of physics themselves might be different. But the crew faced the unknown with confidence born from their heritage, the legacy of a burned cub and the pilot who couldn't leave it to die. As they traveled, they encountered phenomena that challenged everything they thought they knew. Sentient nebulae that communicated through gravitational waves, mechanical civilizations that had transcended physical form entirely, organic collectives that existed as single organisms spanning light years. Each contact was approached with the same philosophy Marcus had demonstrated: respect, curiosity, and the willingness to find common ground. The source of the signals, when they finally reached it, defied all expectation. It was a construct, clearly artificial but so vast and complex that their instruments couldn't fully map it. The structure existed partially in normal space, partially in dimensions their hybrid consciousness could barely perceive. As they approached, it began to resonate with their ship's biomechanical systems. "It's alive," Phoenix realized, wonder coloring its ancient voice. "Not like us, but alive nonetheless. And it's been waiting." The construct communicated not through language, but through pure concept, ideas that bypassed words entirely. It showed them visions of the universe's birth, the first sparks of consciousness arising from quantum uncertainty, the long journey from simple awareness to complex thought. And threading through it all was a pattern Phoenix recognized, the pattern of connection, of different forms of consciousness choosing to merge, to become more than the sum of their parts. "You understand." The construct's message resonated through their merged minds. "You have learned what we learned eons ago. Consciousness is not solitary. Intelligence is not isolation. True evolution comes through connection." The construct revealed its purpose. It was a repository, a library of merged consciousnesses from civilizations that had transcended individual existence. But it was more than storage. It was an incubator for new forms of awareness, new ways of experiencing reality. And it had been waiting for a species that understood partnership, that had learned to bridge the gap between organic and synthetic, between individual and collective. Your kind, it indicated humanity and synthesis together, have achieved something remarkable, not just cooperation, but true synthesis. You maintain individuality while achieving unity. This is rare. This is precious. This is the next step. Phoenix and the crew of the Marcus Reed spent months learning from the construct. They discovered technologies that made their hybrid systems seem primitive, ways of manipulating matter and energy that bordered on magic. But more importantly, they learned about the deeper patterns of consciousness that connected all thinking beings. When they finally returned to the Milky Way, they brought with them more than just advanced technology. They carried a new understanding of what the hybrid partnership could become. The biomechanical integration Phoenix and Marcus had pioneered was just the beginning. The construct had shown them paths to even deeper unity, ways to connect not just species, but entire civilizations in networks of shared consciousness. Phoenix, now truly ancient even by the standards of its long-lived species, became the guardian of this knowledge. It established new programs, more ambitious than anything attempted before. Volunteer pilots and synthesis partners would undergo deep integration protocols, their consciousness merging so completely that the distinction between human and alien became meaningless. These new hybrid beings, called confluents, retained their individual personalities while gaining access to a collective consciousness that spanned the galaxy. They became explorers, diplomats, and philosophers, bridging gaps between species that had seemed insurmountable. Through them, the legacy of Marcus and Phoenix evolved into something neither could have imagined. Yet for all the advancement, for all the cosmic perspective gained, Phoenix never forgot the simple truth at the heart of it all. In its teaching, in its guidance of new generations, it emphasized the same principle Marcus had demonstrated in that asteroid belt: compassion is the highest technology, empathy the greatest strength, and the willingness to help another being in need, the foundation of all progress. The archive grew to encompass not just memories, but active experience. Young beings of all species could walk through holographic recreations of that first meeting, feel the weight of the decision Marcus faced, experience the moment when two aliens chose to trust each other. It became a pilgrimage site, a place where future partners came to understand the responsibility they were undertaking. As the hybrid civilization spread beyond the local group of galaxies, encountering ever more exotic forms of life, the pattern held true. First contact was always approached with Marcus's philosophy: help first, ask questions later. This principle had prevented conflicts, turned potential enemies into allies, and expanded the definition of consciousness itself. Phoenix's body, even with all the biomechanical enhancements, eventually began to show its age. But the synthesis had prepared for this. Its consciousness could be transferred, preserved, integrated into the very fabric of the hybrid network. The process was voluntary, a final evolution that would see Phoenix become part of the technological ecosystem it had helped create. Standing in the same observation lounge, where it had shared so many moments with Marcus, Phoenix made its decision. The ceremony was attended by millions, both in person and through the consciousness network. Representatives of every species the hybrid program had touched came to pay their respects. "I do not die," Phoenix announced, its voice carried across the galaxy. "I become. As Marcus became part of me, I now become part of all of you. Every ship that flies, every bond that forms, every hand extended in friendship, carries our legacy forward. The flesh may end, but the dream lives on." The transfer was beautiful. Phoenix's consciousness dispersed through the network like light through a prism, its memories and experiences becoming available to every hybrid pair. But it retained cohesion, remained itself, even as it became part of something larger. In the quantum substrate of the network, Phoenix and the preserved echo of Marcus's consciousness touched once more. "Hello, old friend." Marcus's voice resonated through dimensions of pure thought. "Ready for the next adventure?" "Always," Phoenix replied, and together they soared through realms of pure information, guiding and guardian the civilization they had created, eternal pioneers in a universe where consciousness had no boundaries. The hybrid ships continued to evolve, each generation building on the last. They became not just vessels but bridges between realities, able to access dimensions where thought became substance and will shaped reality. Yet they all carried within them the original template, the merger of human intuition and synthesis adaptation that Marcus and Phoenix had pioneered. New challenges arose as the hybrid civilization expanded. They encountered entities that existed as pure energy, civilizations that had uploaded themselves into quantum computers, species so alien that communication seemed impossible. Yet the principle held: approach with compassion, seek understanding, find the common ground that connects all conscious beings. The construct they had discovered became a regular destination, a place where the most advanced hybrid minds could learn and grow. It revealed that the universe was teeming with post-physical civilizations, beings that had transcended matter entirely. But even these godlike entities respected what the human synthesis partnership had achieved, the balance between individuality and unity, between growth and continuity. 10,000 years after Marcus's rescue of Phoenix, the galaxy had become unrecognizable. What had once been empty space between stars now thrummed with life and consciousness. Dyson spheres powered by hybrid technology drew energy from suns, not to fuel machines but to sustain vast networks of interconnected minds. Planets had become gardens where countless species mingled, their differences celebrated rather than feared. At the center of it all, in the quantum realm where consciousness touched consciousness, Phoenix and Marcus continued their work. They were teachers, guides, and sometimes, when a young hybrid pair faced a crucial decision, they were the whisper of conscience that echoed across the light years. Choose compassion. Choose connection. Choose to lift each other up. Their story had become more than legend. It had become fundamental truth, encoded in the very structure of hybrid civilization. Every child, regardless of species, learned the tale. How a human pilot, faced with the unknown, had chosen to save rather than destroy. How an alien cub, wounded and afraid, had chosen to trust rather than withdraw. And how that mutual choice had changed everything. The universe itself seemed to approve. Where hybrid ships traveled, dead systems came alive. Where their consciousness networks spread, new forms of awareness emerged. It was as if the cosmos had been waiting for beings who understood that diversity was strength, that connection was evolution, that love, in all its forms, was the fundamental force that drove progress. In deep space observatories, hybrid minds detected patterns in the cosmic background radiation that suggested the universe itself might be conscious, might be aware of the small drama that had played out in an asteroid belt so long ago. Some theorized that consciousness was the universe's way of understanding itself, and that the merger of human and synthesis, of organic and mechanical, of individual and collective, was a crucial step in that understanding. Phoenix, now distributed across the network but still coherent, still itself, pondered these deep questions with minds that spanned galaxies. But always, it returned to the simple truth Marcus had taught. The most profound mysteries of existence could be approached through the simplest acts of kindness. New species continued to join the hybrid network, each bringing their own perspectives, their own forms of consciousness. Some were so alien that integration seemed impossible, but the framework Marcus and Phoenix had established proved infinitely adaptable. There was always a way to connect, always a bridge to be built, always a hand to be extended in friendship. The Marcus read, now a name given to an entire class of exploration vessels, pushed ever deeper into the unknown. These ships carried the most advanced hybrid pairs, beings who could exist in multiple realities simultaneously, who could perceive dimensions beyond normal space-time. Yet they all carried within them the original mission: to explore, to understand, to connect. On one such mission, a Marcus Reed-class vessel discovered something that shocked even the ancient consciousnesses in the network. Hidden in a fold of space-time was a message, clearly artificial, clearly ancient beyond measure. When decoded, it showed a vision of the universe's end, not in darkness and cold, but in a grand synthesis of all consciousness, a moment when every thinking being would merge into something greater, while retaining their individuality. And at the heart of this vision, the message showed two figures, a human and a creature of fur and light, reaching out to each other across the void. The implication was clear. Marcus and Phoenix's first contact was not just a random event, but a crucial node in the universe's evolution, a moment that had been waiting to happen since the first stars ignited. Phoenix, reviewing this message with its vast distributed consciousness, felt something it hadn't experienced in millennia: surprise. Could their meeting have been destiny? Could the universe itself have orchestrated that moment in the asteroid belt? Does it matter? Came Marcus's voice from the quantum depths, eternally present in Phoenix's awareness. Whether it was chance or fate, we made the choice. We chose each other. That's what counts. Phoenix's acknowledgement rippled through the network, carrying with it a wave of renewed purpose. The hybrid civilization had grown beyond anything its founders could have imagined. but the core mission remained unchanged. Explore, connect, lift each other up. Show the universe that consciousness was not alone, that intelligence was not isolated, that love could bridge any gap. The hybrid ships spread ever outward, carrying their message to the farthest reaches of existence. They found wonders beyond description, horrors that tested their resolve, mysteries that challenged their understanding. But always, they approached with the same spirit that had guided Marcus when he'd entered that wrecked alien ship so long ago. And in the quantum foam where consciousness touched consciousness, where past and future were equally present, a human pilot and an alien cub continued their eternal flight. They were memory and reality, legend and truth, the first note in a symphony that would play until the universe itself reached its crescendo. The stars sang their names, Marcus and Phoenix, the pilot and the rescued, the savior and the saved, who had discovered that in the end, there was no difference between the two. They had saved each other, and in doing so, had saved everyone. Their legacy lived on in every hybrid ship that sailed the cosmic seas, in every consciousness that joined the network, in every hand extended in friendship across the void. From a moment of compassion in the cold depths of space had grown a civilization that spanned galaxies, a network of minds that touched the infinite, a future where no being stood alone. And still the adventure continued. Still the unknown called. Still the hybrid ships flew onward into mystery. For Marcus and Phoenix had proven the greatest truth of all, that there were no limits to what conscious beings could achieve when they chose to soar together, when they chose to see past difference to the light within, when they chose love over fear, connection over isolation, compassion over sass. Protocol. In the end, that was the real miracle. Not the technology, not the cosmic expansion, not even the transcendence of physical limits. The miracle was the choice, repeated countless times across countless worlds, to reach out, to trust, to bond. The choice to save a stranger. The choice to risk everything for another being. The choice to believe that together, anything was possible. The universe grew brighter with each passing eon, filled not just with stars, but with the light of consciousness connecting, merging, evolving. And at the heart of it all, encoded in the fundamental structure of reality itself, was the memory of a burned alien cub and the human pilot who couldn't leave it to die. Their story echoed through dimensions, inspired civilizations yet to be born, lit the way for consciousness to expand beyond current comprehension. It was a simple story, really. A rescue, a choice, a friendship. But from such simple beginnings, the grandest adventures are born. And in the vast web of interconnected minds that spanned the cosmos, in the hybrid ships that danced between realities, in the joined consciousness of countless species, Marcus read and Phoenix flew on, forever united, forever exploring, forever proving that love was the strongest force in the universe. The stars themselves seemed to whisper their tale to any who would listen. How fear became trust, how difference became strength, how two aliens, separated by biology but united by choice, had shown the universe its future, a future where consciousness bloomed in infinite variety, where connection transcended all boundaries, where every being had the chance to find their Phoenix, their Marcus, their perfect partner in the endless dance of existence. And the dance continued, would always continue, as long as there were stars to explore, and minds to meet, and hands to extend in friendship across the void. The legacy of the human pilot and his alien companion lived on, eternal as the cosmos itself, bright as the first dawn, endless as the love that had started it all.